not dusk, is it? Dawn breaks in the United Kingdom. Dawn breaks.
My sun's going down, your sun's going up.
Well, you know what? There's something to be said about us going in different directions, out of the night, into the night. That sounds a little bit like a high vibe to me. Hey, it's your podcast for everything super. I'm not joking, by the way. It's literally 4:45 a.m. where I am. It's been a long old night. I'm joined by the only person to have a restraining order placed on him by a train. That's Mad Magical. There he is. And I'm also delighted to be joined by one of the greatest minds in SUPERVIVE. It's honestly a pleasure to call him my friend. It's a pleasure to have him on the podcast for the first time. Zikorik, my dude, how you doing?
Doing so well, bro. I am honored to be here, and we are all warmed up because we just come off the back of a legendary cast with Mad Magical to close out Abyssal Cup 3, and holy.
Warmed up is definitely a choice of phrase that I wouldn't use for where we are right now. We're like,
but you're not ready for Abyssal Cup 4 right now? I'm ready. Let's go immediately.
This is the magical energy.
My description would be we've slightly wilted in the sun, apart from Mad Magical, who apparently is just able to just gun for the hills.
On the eighth wind.
Let's talk about what we're going to cover on this show, which I imagine it might be shorter than other one. I don't know. I've got to edit this immediately after and then upload it, and then I'm moving house.
Yeah, he's in the middle of a move, by the way, guys. He's hosting a tournament and recording a podcast without missing a beat mid-move.
I decided
Maniac.
Misery for the next. It's not misery. I'm spending an hour with you guys. It's going to be fun, or maybe more. I don't know. But on today, yes, we are going to be covering fresh off the press. Like, we're straight out of it, straight into talking about it. We're going to be reviewing Abyssal Cup 3 and revealing, as we announced, totally planned, completely, absolutely what we were going to do. We're going to announce the Chicken Nugget Meal Award. So shout out to the A1 twins, Twin A, who reached out and was like, hey, I want to add $100 to the prize pool, $750 to $850. And there were $10 left over. I'm like, hey, let's do a most kills award. So we'll be announcing that alongside the general review. We're going to be talking about the most recent patch, which has dropped. It's pretty cute, pretty small, but is it underrated? We're going to then expand into the discussion about, hey, more content, more bugs, or less content, less bugs. There's certainly a discussion that's been pretty hot, I'd say, on the Discord server in the meantime. And we're going to wrap up by taking a little gander at the Chinese pre-registrations, which also might have tied into it maybe a little look at Jewel, because apparently there was an official account posting of a Jewel rework. Ooh, there we go. There's something spicy to make sure that you... Well, I mean, I've got the chapters. I guess you could skip to the end of the episode if you want.
Don't tell them how to get around it, Reliq.
Go there, listen to it, and then come back, because, hey, what is it? That's right, it's the SUPERVIVE. It's the curious question of the pod. I don't know how I'm going to survive this one, folks, but I do know how to ask a good question, and I'm actually pretty proud of this one. Hope you all enjoy it. Mad Magical, Zikorik, if you could pick a League of Legends or Apex Legends legend to bring into SUPERVIVE, so of course two of the biggest inspirations of our wonderful game here, who would it be? And why? Let's start with the new boy, shall we? Zikorik, what do you got?
All right. I thought about this long and hard. And who I want to see brought into the breach here is our boy Ornn from League of Legends. Couple reasons. I love Ornn. My bro drew his splash art. It's legendary. I think he brings some really... Okay, first of all, I don't think there's enough sort of tank bruisers in SUPERVIVE. Like this kind of role Ornn fills. Because when you think of that role, you oddly think of Oath, who's like, I guess, just everything. Yeah. But it's like, he can also play support. He can also do good damage, but you don't really have this beefy kind of tank bruiser. And I just have always really loved Ornn's kit and what he can kind of bring to the table. And I love kind of the macro of Ornn's kit, the way he can basically access the shop in lane. Imagine being able to do that anywhere on the map. You essentially have your own little mini forge shop, and then there's something along the lines of you can help your team scale up a little more than the enemy team. So for example, maybe Ornn can give his teammates one ability to level 4, like a mini XP soul, right? Or maybe he can take like one item from like pink to like glowing orange legendary or something like that, where he has these little things where, you know, it can give your team like kind of like this macro advantage, but then he has just this solid frontline bruiser kit. He can throw up a pillar, he can smash his head into it, knock you up, you know, set up his team with some crowd control, really, you know, kind of big crowd control ult with the hammer slam, kind of like a cool skill shot. I've always really loved the way his ult plays out in games. And then, you know, the bellows breath for a little bit of tank DPS. I think Ornn would fit fantastic in the breach.
I agree. I definitely think that the shop anywhere would fit very nicely into a bit of a unique ultimate, like more of a support ultimate like that. We need more of that in SUPERVIVE. I agree. Magically, you thinking along the tank route? Are you going? I imagine surely League of Legends, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you don't know, I cast League of Legends for a long time, did a lot of the NICL stuff, started on LCS a couple times as well. So League was my bread and butter for a long time before I fell in love with SUPERVIVE and moved over to this. And there are a couple different options I was thinking that would fit really well. My favorite champion in League of Legends is actually Fiddlesticks. I love the whole horror motif, and I think that is something that is missing in SUPERVIVE, is more of that like shock value, the scare value that you can get for something like Fiddlesticks that I think would add a lot. Not only just being able to charge up your ultimate to then dash forward, get the fear off, but also the fact that he has his passive, which I think you'd just make into basic ability, which you can put down crows, or you can put down, you know, yourself as a scarecrow itself, that would then make it so that you have vision on these certain areas that could then trick people because they could start walking away, make it think that's you, really get into the mindset of like, and really get into the mind of your enemy to try to see if you want to catch them off guard that way. But there's also like other ones I personally love. Like I really like playing Vigar. I like scaling kind of champions like that as well. Something that the more you hit your enemies, the stronger you'll get over the course of the game. You start off really weak.
Like the Cho'Gath thing too, where you like scale
Cho'Gath
and stuff like that.
That'd be another, pretty much anything in that kind of vein.
I like
Vigar because he's also a tiny little master of evil. And he's evil, he swears. So I like that. And then if I'm going towards like, I kind of like the idea though of just sticking with more tanks, because that is the biggest thing that is lacking in SUPERVIVE. It's something that is really tanky. And if I had to pick like more on the tank line, Nautilus would be mine. Something that has a good, kind of a similar hook to how Kingpin does, but it also then pulls you half of the distance that way too. So it's not quite the same. Can't go through terrain like Kingpin does as well. You also have a point and click ultimate that would then knock up someone as well as any enemies around that person that can allow for some decent engage opportunities too. I think those kind of three would be the ones I would really like to see added in.
I think if there was ever an opportunity for a crossover comic of some sort between League of Legends and SUPERVIVE, a Bebo X Vigar comic would be just
the adventures of Bebo
that'd be
and Vigar.
Incredible. I would love to see that. For me, I'm gonna go ahead and rep Apex Legends. I think I'm probably the one with the most experience in Apex Legends, and I'm just gonna be completely counterintuitive, and I'm gonna go for a DPS. But I think it's for good reason. So the legend who I'm picking is Bangalore, who has been in the game since the beginning. And what I really like about Bangalore is how she reacts to her passive. And so essentially, near shot misses boosts her speed. And so the idea would be that you can either close the distance quicker to your opponents and punish them for missing their shots. And especially in a game where SUPERVIVE, where you don't have a lot of rapid fire weapons apart from Ghosts LMB, really. Like, that's a really incredible tool to be able to achieve that. Alternatively, if you're looking to turn and burn out rather than turn and burn a team down, trying to get out of there, those missed shots only enhances your ability to run away. On top of that, what Bangalore is probably most well known for, apart from her ultimate, which I believe is called Rolling Thunder. That's a huge pick from the depths of my internal library.
You are correct, because I'm looking at the wiki right now.
Is it really? Oh my god, good job, me. I'll give myself a pat on the back. So Rolling Thunder is kind of like a mini bombing run, and so it's not all of the damage in one go. It's sort of like a layered missile strike path, which I think that's actually quite unique as well in setting up to buy space for your team potentially. It's not but it's also balanced, especially when you think of SUPERVIVE, in that the team can react to it in the similar way to the bombing run. But on top of that, I think there's not a lot of stuff really in SUPERVIVE that obscures vision. Dude, so you have stealth, but like there's not a lot of, well, to put it bluntly, smoke grenades, which is what Bangalore has. And so the ability for your team to be able to see the outlines of the rest of your team, for example, but nobody, like all of your opponents, can't look into the smoke, so they're effectively just trying to guess where you are. I think that'd be a really cool mechanic
that would be cool
to add into it. And I mean, hey, if you can combine it with stealth on top of that, I mean, it's just a nice alternative. And so I think, although, yes, a DPS, I think Bangalore, or a Bangalore-esque kit, would actually fit really beautifully into SUPERVIVE.
That sounds dope. Love it.
So there we go.
I don't know Apex. I'm sorry.
We should get you a game sometimes.
I'm just listening to
this. It's good fun.
I like the smoke screen idea, though. That I think is like a really good way to kind of go about that, where we don't really see much that plays with vision. You know, like really trying to restrict vision control. I think that would be something cool to see SUPERVIVE add into the game. Like really try to see if you can, and don't do it too much, because then it could get annoying. But have like occasionally, a hunter here or there, or like a certain like consumable item. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Go on.
Real quick, you think about tactical shooters and how valuable smokes are, like how big of a role smokes play in like Counter-Strike, for example, or like Val. It's like, yeah, I think, having that kind of mechanic in the game would really kind of like mix stuff up, and it'd be interesting to see how it plays out at like the isometric angle, right? Because when you think about smokes, a lot of times it's in the, through the like a FPS like Apex, right, where your angle is like looking forward at the smoke, where it'd be a little different, like looking kind of down from isometric. But I do love the idea of like that kind of mechanic, being implemented. Could be really cool.
I'm glad. I took a while to think about that, but I think honestly 3 really good choices, and for all we know, Theorycraft Games is already working on them. I imagine that there are plenty of hunters on the way. I mean, goodness, if we go by the guarantee of the 1 hunter per month rule, we still have a number left for this year. So
can I just say, if they have a hunter that is like Rengar, that will be both the coolest thing and the worst thing, because now you'll have something that could just jump out of any bush and kill you instantly. But also, how cool would that be to play?
Yeah, it would be fun. Yeah. He sounds like a terror, though, in certain parts of the map,
disgusting.
But in other parts of the map, just useless. Right?
That's how Rengar is in general.
You have to always drop and get the shrub.
Check every bush all the time. This should teach Actually, you know what? I take it back. Add him into the game. This will teach everyone to check every bush.
Bush play is actually a really good segue. Like, as much as we could go and flounder about how Rengar or any champion would be a good or a bad thing in SUPERVIVE, we could talk about bush plays in Abyssal Cup 3 and everything to do with Abyssal Cup 3. Yes, I know, usually the competitive stuff comes at the end, but we are fresh off the back of this tournament. I was producing, you were casting. Do we think it was the best North American, technically America's tournament? I know that there were no Brazilian teams there on day 2, but or indeed just general South American teams. I know people get panicked. That's what you sound like. Just no mercy today. But yes, there were 3 wonderful, wonderful Brazilian teams who, bless them, they tried their best on ping, and we can see the skill and the quality in them. Just unfortunately ping too much on this occasion. But yes, then eventually day 2, North American. And yeah, was it the best North American day of SUPERVIVE? I mean, it's got to be up there. It's pretty close. I think there was a lot of really enjoyable things about this tournament.
I think, like, you want to go first, Magical?
No, I want to think.
Okay. I think that yesterday, like I don't think the two groups were as close as I would have expected. Just in like good point of a comparison is like you think back to Abyssal Cup 2 in EU, and you think about 36 teams and the way those three groups played out. Like the actual group stage of the EU tournament was so close and spicy, and there were so many teams just barely missing the boat, like making it into finals. And I think, that was what made that final so wild, is because you basically had, well, first of all, you had more teams. So it's literally like more, kind of total talent available to churn their way to the top. So you're going to get, even kind of the best of the best at the top in that scenario. But, I think when we look at the day 2 of today, like, the tournament that just played out, even though the group stage wasn't quite as close, there were kind of some clear winners in each group and a couple of teams kind of running the lobby. This day 2 was freaking close, man. Like the amount the scoreboard shifted, the amount, that the power kind of and the momentum kind of shifted amongst teams. I think the only thing that really like made it feel not quite as close is the kind of unmoving pillar, which was TLD at the top of the scoreboard. They came out incredibly strong, put up some really big points early, and from that point, it was basically up to everyone else to kind of challenge and contest that spot on the board. But TLD, they've been hungry for it. They've been training their butts off and come in with a very, very good plan. I love the comp plan from TLD. We're going to literally play the 3 hunters that are for sure going to get banned, guarantee they get banned. And we have a completely different team comp ready for the second half. And, we did see a little bit of a fall off in the kind of points they were accumulating in the second half. But I think that might have been because of a bit of a strategy shift on their end, where they kind of see where they're at on the board and they play a little more of that, I don't want to say passive, but cautious strategic positioning, not wanting to overcommit and go out too early and kind of lose that spot. So I think, it was super, super close, but I think anytime you kind of have a team pushing up to the top of a scoreboard really early like that, it can, make it feel like it's up to the other teams to stop that versus like it being, kind of up in the air who's going to win, right?
I love this tournament in the fact that the bans, I think, add so much. I think that's what makes, in my mind, makes this such an exciting tournament, and why I think like it probably is the best tournament we've had for Americas. Would I say it's the best of any of the Abyssal Cups that we've had? Probably not. I mean, it's kind of like Shrek, right? The first one's great. Everyone loves that one. The second one is the best. Everyone agrees on that one. The third one's kind of just there. It's good. You enjoy it, but it's not better than the second.
You're
right?
kind of making me hesitant about even doing Abyssal Cup 4, to be honest.
No, it's okay, because Abyssal Cup 4 is all right.
How was Shrek 4?
Hey, we don't talk about that one. We've got to change up the whole strategy, right? We got to get new main characters and all that stuff. That's what we got to do. But I'm looking at this, right? And honestly, if you look at how this tournament functioned, where TLD, they win, they were able to kind of like, they did all right in the second half after the bans came in, the 3rd, 6th, 5th finishes. But this almost makes me more excited for the future of SUPERVIVE and like when we get into more tournaments later down the road, because one thing that we've tested out in the past were things like match points, where you have to get to this threshold and these points, but then you have to win. You can't just get the points. You have to win that game after getting past that threshold in order to take the victory. And I think this kind of gives you a good example of how that can really function in a really crazy and fun way, because when we went into the ban phase, right, after 4 games, it was TLD well ahead of everybody. Nobody was even close to them. They finished second, first, second, right? They dominated in the first half. But then in the second half, we see Cat were able to take a victory in game 4. Then 10, a team that had been in the bottom 3, win game 5. You have FF, a team that has been doing all right but hadn't been able to get that win, taking game 6. Then game 7 was won by Cat again, and 10 then win game 8, where now if we add in match point into this one, that suddenly makes it so that TLD, who had been kind of resting on the laurels of how they did in the first part of the games, they're not going to be nearly as confident going into this one as well. You can keep the tournament going even longer based off that.
Here's the thing, though. Match point is an actual nightmare fuel scenario for any TO, because you don't know how long you're going to go. More to the point, from the show perspective, as much as usually speaking, and of course we are definitely looking to, I think, Apex Legends as our major reference point here. Usually speaking, they're banger series because they end up going to Game 8, Game 9, Game 10. I think the longest one in recorded history was Game 13, I want to say, where there was like over half the lobby on match point, which is insane.
I don't know how it was for Apex, but when we did it in EU, we did get to 12.
Right. I mean,
and I casted all 12 of those.
Admittedly, right now with SUPERVIVE, and it is a point of contention, of course, we have names turned on, which, if we're going to reference here, of course, congratulations to the last door. I don't think it would have affected necessarily how they played, because I still think they would have been more conservative than anything. But what I do think is that I like match point. I think that it has got to be reserved for very special occasions, and I don't even think it should be used for regular LANs even, because I think knowing how many games you've got to do the business, and knowing, I mean, even just, in terms of having all three of those hunters out in one go, like, so Apex does it where it's one hunter after every single game. I actually quite like the idea of allowing teams, and especially those who are more reliant on the one tricks, an opportunity to try and build up a lead. And then we start to find out how deep the pool goes later on by having these ban phases where we're just, sweeping a couple or 3 hunters out from underneath their feet throughout. So, I mean, look, from the TO perspective, I'm really delighted with how it went. And I think from a viewer perspective, just as a fan perspective, I'm delighted with For Fun. Third place behind Moonlit Battlegrounds and the last story, Moonlit, like, everyone was expecting them to be 1 and 2, I think, with the exception of Magical, who decided to go for Cat instead.
Gotta be different.
Proud to be different.
But they won twice, just saying.
They did win twice, but the fact that For Fun even won a game in the first place, I think is testament to, and I think we look at Saucy Hack especially as that leader in there. He's, this guy's been in the top 100 for a long time now, and it must be so rewarding for him. It's certainly rewarding to me as a viewer to see this guy finally earn his colors on a serious stage.
Dude, and it's like, I love how they play to their namesake. Like, you watch the way they're playing, it looks like they're playing more for fun than these other squads. They were literally the only squad, it seemed like, in Group B yesterday that wasn't sort of getting aura'd by Moonlit Battlegrounds. They were constantly poking at them, constantly looking for fights, never afraid to fight. And, those, we ended up talking about it a bit in the cast, how I really like, the call out from Magical about how we used to, Nutty was this feast or famine team. And that's, over the course of this tournament, that kind of same play style, Nutty still does it, but For Fun doing it a little better here because they didn't have any famine. Well, they certainly had a little bit, but the amount of feasting they were doing and, really not letting off the gas, like continuing to keep that tempo up, was really cool to see. And I remember seeing Zen for the first time, literally for the first time, just a little over a month ago in the Dylan and Thank You Chef Arena tournament. That was the first time I even saw Zen's name. And since then, I think he was already good then, but he's still very new to the game, I think. And, like you say, to be able to put together a new team and be able to scale up to this level where you're actually contesting the literal top squads, Moonlit Battlegrounds and TLD. I mean, that's wild, man. That is an accomplishment. So For Fun should be super, super proud of the performance they put together today, for sure.
Hey, Magical, I think in the battle between EU and NA, and I've held this spinning for a while now, I think Moonlit Battlegrounds and Last Door would absolutely hang 10 in an EU lobby, top EU lobby. But I think definitely you look at the rest of North America and there are question marks. And I think that today really just demonstrates, when you look at the region in a microcosm, for example, you have SUPERVIVE Illuminati blasting out the gates with a really impressive opening win. This team only had a 1-point advantage to get through to day 2. They are the proverbial wild card, of course. They had the 10th and final wild card spot in our first ever Abyssal Cup when it was top 3 in each group and then the 4th place team with the most points within a group. So they really love living on the edge.
That was so epic.
But the fact that they actually get a win demonstrates that any one of these 12 teams really could have potentially taken a win away. But where they lack is those games where they don't win. The lack of consistency is so concerning, and the lack of kill points as well. You know, it's a real demonstration as to why MB and TLD have such a grip on North America at the moment.
Well, and it's so funny kind of watching the history of SUPERVIVE, right? You go back all the way to the closed alphas, and we were talking about how it was NA. NA was the team that anyone could win. There are so many teams at the top. Yes, the last door were the ones that kept winning, but there were so many close fights for a lot of these teams back when it was BAP, back when we had main characters. We had a lot more of these teams that were in the conversation of like potential winners. Well, EU, it was only Bomba. Bomba this, Bomba that. Everything was Bomba. Pumpers were kind of there, but it was always Bomba winning. But slowly over the course of how I think SUPERVIVE evolved, we started seeing that there's just been more development when it comes to Europe, especially from a lot of the players over there, where they are really intense about like how they talk with one another to like really learn the game, to really learn the ins and outs of this. I've just gone in calls with both NA and EU players just to talk with them, just to vibe with them. And while NA, I do think they take it seriously. It's not like the EU guys. They really are like trying to innovate. They're really trying to talk about not just how to play certain hunters, but how you play certain hunters when you have a certain position, certain items, certain strongholds, et cetera, really going into the nitty gritty, the more macro sense of the game. While NA, it feels like they're still more focused on the micro. You have some of these players like Lord Vader that are probably some of the best micro players that are. Pine is another one of those. These players that are so good at the quick decision makings, right? They're really good at those really intense fights that most people would struggle at. But when it comes to how they want to approach certain fights, they're just like, well, we just fight. We just go, right? And then you talk to an EU player, you're like, whoa, why are you going to go when you don't know this position? You don't know how this team is setting up right here. You don't have this jump pad, blah, blah, blah. I think that's kind of been like the big thing for me, why we tend to see like there's this discrepancy where EU, they're very open about talking about the meta for all these players. So they're all really working on it together. And I think that's why the region as a whole has been growing. NA, they're much more focused on the macro, while you have some teams that have that, the micro, while some teams have the macro, such as TLD. I think even Moonlit Battlegrounds are a team that struggles with that. They are able to win purely because they got the hands. Every one of those players got the hands, but they just lack that macro sense sometimes that puts them in a position where they fall behind early, and now they're really having to try to climb up the standings in order to get themselves that victory that they need to in order to win tournaments at the very end.
Yeah, totally. I love the shout out to like, if you're like hanging out in Sprokane's stream after like one of his tournaments, it's actually so crazy. Like almost like a huge majority of the players on the different teams like all get together in one call and essentially shoot the crap, like not argue, but like converse with each other.
Well held, it's by the way. Man knows I'm editing this immediately after. No bleeps me, thank you.
It's just very cool to see where I think the kind of tech, especially on the macro strategy level, like Magical's talking about, is a little more like close to the vest in NA. Like, you know, I don't think TLD is like discussing their strategies with MB or, you know, and same thing with MB, likely not kind of, you know, sharing like what they think is best, what their plans are. Whereas in EU, like almost after every kind of tournament and event, you have all the kind of main players from the different squads like coming together in one voice call, you know, just talking it out. And like like Magical says, like what comes out of that is a lot of knowledge gained for everyone. You get all these different perspectives clashing, and you get an opportunity to kind of hear. The other thing is, I just don't think, you know, in general, that culture is as easily offended as the American culture. So they're able to actually like
they have sometimes arguments that you think are like actually like mean spirited, but it's just, and then afterwards they're laughing. Then afterwards they're laughing together, like good talk.
Exactly. And like, you know, it's the way it should be, where, you know, you can basically say you know, what it is, like how it is, without, having to kind of filter because you think you might offend someone. But it's just, I just love the shout out for Magical there. The fact that EU kind of does that, and they do it very consistently, and they're very kind of open and interactive with each other about their strategies. And I kind of wonder a little bit how much, that influences the progression of that region versus NA maybe being a little more close to the vest. And the final thing on the micro call out, bro, NA loves their arena. We heard it. The interview with Pine at the end of the Moonlit Battlegrounds tournament. Like, he is such an arena fan, and I wonder if that kind of goes to show this difference of like micro and macro between the regions.
I mean, I uttered the infamous words that no doubt will be replayed at some point in the future when NA does get their stuff together. This macro sucks. I mean, it's kind of, it's half memeing. It's half memeing, but it's also kind of true. I think that there is a lot of room for growth in North America, and I think you two have hit the nail on the head. One of the cool things about Europe is that there are still new teams coming to the region. And I'm not even talking about teams splitting up and reforming. We had one of the biggest news stories of the year was Turbo Velocity splitting up, and Tom Kick and Ori finding pastures new. Adamark, sitting back and enjoying the quiet life on the ranked servers instead. And like, none of those players are featuring on, for example, Lethal Sudden Death, who is this team that's come out of, not come out of nowhere. People have seen them on ranked and on the servers, but they head into their first proper scrims and they're hitting top 6, top 3 almost immediately. And I think a lot of that is because of the openness of the EU players to guide them and to, show them where to be playing, who to be playing, who to be talking to. And I certainly hope that we see more from North America in that sort of vein.
All right, so what you're telling me, Reliq, is that after I take care of all my family stuff, so like, what day? We're recording this on the 1st, so this will go out in a couple days. Where if I'm look at my phone. So after the 21st of June, I'm gonna start like just getting them all on a call, everyone in NA, and be like, all right, we're learning macro today, and everyone's gonna be like, Magical, you suck at the game. It's like, yes, but I can teach you macro still.
It's true, and I like that idea. I think that'd be a great plan, certainly. Maybe you should craft one of your fun tournaments, which is extremely constrictive to help people learn macro. Like, maybe the idea would be to get 12 teams into endgame and then just let it go from there. Oh, actually, I mean, that's kind of NA coded, though, all the bush hiding. I digress. What we should do is we should spend a quick minute to divert and live up to something which I totally planned from the beginning. We got to announce our Chicken Nugget Meal Award winner. So this is the player across day 1 and day 2 of Abyssal Cup 3 who's ended up picking up the most kills. Pretty close, honestly, near the end. There were 6 players all within 9 kills of each other. That's honestly genuinely impressive. And it was actually the day 1 leader who was able to convert it in the last game, by the way, able to re-overtake a teammate to go and win the $10 prize. It's Height. And well done to him. Having to suffer on the oath for so long. Let's rip in the second half of day 2, back on the brawl. He beat out his own teammate Pineapple, who was incredibly close, Shrike Jordan. But I also want to give out a shout out to Scrub McLeod from Nutty, who was able to hit the top 6, 30 kills. For just out of interest, all 3 Moonlit Battlegrounds members were top 4. We also saw Abador and Phenom both hitting that top 6 as well. So congratulations, Height. Your check's in the mail. Let's talk patch, because we had one just before the tournament, and there was a couple of concerns of like, oh, what's going to change? And well, not much really has changed, lads. We got Void with a bit of a glow up. We've got a couple of we got a nerf to Carbine. We've got a slight bump for Hudson. Jin has had one of the most long-standing issues with himself fixed, which, hallelujah, the ability lockout has finally been fixed. But something which has really actually affected how teams play, and I've seen this particularly in ranked when people realize, hold up, we got a radial menu now. You can now choose where you TP to. And so just a TLDR it for anyone who's not in the know, you used to be able to TP
Or recall.
automatically to a base if you had it, or if you don't have a base, you would TP to your closest hunter. Not that you had that originally. That was a new thing that was added a few months ago. But now you can choose between your base camp or either of your teammates, though you do suffer a penalty if you TP to those allies. 5 seconds of silence, which basically means that you can't do anything. No abilities, no powers, decaying speed debuff. So it's not like you can just jump on a teammate and then go immediately into the fight. It's okay for setup, but that's about it. Some say it might get nerfed more, but I think it's great. I think it opens up tactical opportunities aplenty, especially for the macro.
Macro.
Yeah.
By the way, wait. There was a patch I didn't notice.
No, I mean it was pretty small. It was pretty small. That was basically it.
I'm just memeing everyone, but yeah, there was a patch. They did something Carbine. They did something that and nothing changed, and you're like, oh, okay. Like we even saw in Abyssal Cup, right? That's played on the new patch, and Carbine still ended up being one of the banned hunters after.
It's true.
Well, yeah, I think the Carbine touch is very, very light. Like if you look at his kit and what he does, they didn't reduce the slow on the auto that you get from his passive when you shift forward. They reduced the slow on the Q, which was already very, like the stun was already very short, and the slow like wasn't that aggressive. The aggressive slow is like when you shift forward and connect the LMB, the empowered LMB. And a lot of times the gate helps you, like it enables you to do that. So I think this shock trap drone change, the slow from the drone has been reduced in magnitude duration. That we don't really feel that much at all. And then the only other change is 20% damage reduction of the ult, which by the way is very often used for kill shots or wisp kills. So, yes, you're losing a little bit of damage on your ulti, but if you look at Carbine's kit and kind of what makes him work, it's so much around the auto damage that, 20% off the ult is really not going to slow him down. And like Magical says, you don't really see it in action at all. The change I do like, Reliq, alluding to what you were talking about, is somewhere along the way, they implemented this change where you are able to recall to allies if you don't have a base camp. That is fairly new in the grand scheme of things, but still, a little tested at this point, a few months at least. And, over the course of that being implemented, what we basically see is teams starting to deprioritize bonfires, especially very early in the game, essentially not wanting to cap a bonfire at all so that you can maintain this ability to recall for your ally. And we essentially see this shift to where a recall to ally is being used actually very aggressively, and players are sort of going in solo, baiting out teams to chase them, knowing that their teammates are around to recall to jump as soon as they have one isolated. So you started to get this weird kind of like utilization of it in gameplay, which was certainly like not intended when they implemented. So I think that's basically where we see this silence change come through. They're trying to, they like it being in the game. And they like the option to be able to recall to ally. However, like it's not essentially meant to be used as a combat tactic. So if you are, the implementation of this silence and this slow is essentially if you are looking to recall to ally, you want to be out of combat at least a little bit, like in some sort of a safe spot, so that, you're basically going to need 5 seconds to be able to do really anything. So I think, overall, that's a cool change. And I also really like just the addition of, the radial menu with the option, if you do have a base camp, you actually can still recall to your ally now, which is really cool.
I mean, there was a major worry of, that could be very exploitative, but I really love that Theorycraft actually saw that and said, okay, we need to chuck a bunch of debuffs on here. So let's do a catch-all. Let's call it silenced. And I think, again, whether it gets further tweaks, like whether you get silenced for longer or not, is certainly up for debate, but I didn't see it impacting Abyssal Cup 3 negatively. I think that generally speaking it's been really well received, alongside the slight deathbox tweak as well. So now just to really simplify it, your deathbox lands where you actually die now rather than where you got knocked, because people are trying to look around for the death box, and especially when you're looking to pick up a soul. If you take down a team with soul, that's really frustrating. If you take them down 5 meters further on from where you actually knocked them, and it's like, well, wait, an enemy's already on top of that box now, and so I've lost out on all of the hard work which I've done to try and pick this thing up. It really is that small a patch, folks. There's not much more to talk about, but I do want to just highlight.
They did something to Hudson too.
Wait, I want to hear the Hudson experts' analysis of the Hudson change.
Okay, Magical can talk about Hudson. The floor is yours.
It didn't do anything. Okay, no. I mean,
yeah.
It's like the only problem I have with this one is remember last time I said it's like I feel like the buff that if you're going to give something to Hudson, you make it so that his ability to turn it is just slightly faster, not that much faster, just slightly faster because I feel like that was the weak thing. Instead, they're really trying to hit on the weird aspect of this kit that feels very tacked on, which is if he bumps into someone with hover wings, which is not something that a lot of Hudson players even know exists. Most people who play Hudson don't know that because they're not ever turning the minigun off anyone. Anyway, so why would they know that if they bump into somebody that it's going to knock them back and make it a little bit easier? That's why I always find that one very weird. It's like they've got these two different aspects with the kit that just don't really mesh well together. I think it's a cool idea, just not on Hudson personally. That's my gripe with that one. But the salvage hook, I think, is actually a good one. I think making it so that no matter what, he was guaranteed to get the kill, and then that gives them the health big. And dash reset. That is
nice.
That one is nice, but not enough still. I think they just look, guys, just make it so he spins a little bit faster. That not much, just a little bit. Just
not as big also as the 0.2 second removal of startup on the actual activation of shift.
Nobody noticed it.
Major plays from Theory. They want to tweak it. I mean, look, I think there's a lot flashbacks with Hudson Zik. This thing has been giga busted before, and they really don't.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I wouldn't know anything about that.
It's this thing where there are a couple hunters that they feel extra oppressive to play into, and so when you think about a game you're trying to make that's fun for all players, when you have certain hunters that have a kit that feels, and just to give you some examples, Hudson, Brawl, Jewel. Like that'd probably be my top offenders of hunters that, and by the way, you see that reflected in the hyper aggressive nerfs that have chunked all three of these hunters over the last 6 months. Just an insane amount of nerfs to these three in particular. But it basically, Hudson has one of these kits where people feel like they are essentially like very punished by damage without a crazy amount of like skill required on the other side, and his sort of ability to hold space, which is an extremely important aspect of SUPERVIVE, just off of the sheer kind of damage pressure of this like cannon minigun, created like a pretty brutal experience for a lot of new players right when the game was released. And we saw a similar thing happen shortly after, once people started to figure out the Brawl. And we saw something that happened very similar after that once people started to figure out the Jhin. Jewel's always been crazy, but you essentially have this part of the cast where their kit is such that they can be incredibly frustrating to play against. And I think, when you consider trying to attract players, especially more casual players in a large audience, you want to do your best to make those feel less oppressive to play against while maintaining that hunter's identity and power. And that is just like, that's such a hard thing to do. So it's a very real challenge. And maybe some of that goes all the way back to the original hunter design potentially being flawed. But that's a whole other conversation, right? But I think, that's kind of what we see happening here is, and then once those hunters get gutted, we see a little bit of like touch up, which is what we're looking at with Hudson here, where they're trying to bring it back to a point where it's good enough to be fun and effective, but not good enough to be oppressive, I guess.
Good luck, Theorycraft. And on that note, again, just before we sign off on this, the fact that they actually fixed Abyssal Breaker on Oath, thus inadvertently buffing him again, really funny. Just the amount. It's funny as well, given that I understand that the Oath is not really with the highest win rate still in ranked, but then Asia doesn't. there's a whole competitive conversation, and I'm too tired to have it. But what I'm not too tired to talk about is kind of a discussion that was born off the Discord server quite recently. And so I think there's been a growing frustration. I think it's fair to say that with the size of Theorycraft's team, which has been made abundantly clear, it should be said, in the last couple of days, there has been something of a communication breakdown from Theorycraft to community, from community to Theorycraft, with the understanding that there's a lot of people trying to make 1.0 really, really good. And I think that's all fair and well. But in all of these discussions, there was also a dig through where a lot of these competitive players, and a lot of the vets as well, I mean, it's not just competitive, it's people who've played the game for a long time. They're looking at all of these bugs that have existed for ages, and they're like, why aren't you fixing this? Why are you focusing on new content? There could be a bunch of new bugs. And so this whole ideology conflict, has arisen, where you have more content with more risk of bugs versus less content with less risk of bugs / more bugs fixed in that time. And essentially the official TC word on this is we'd rather swing big. This game didn't retain enough people. We need more content and more enticing reasons to play the game. And so I guess the question that this boils down to, lads, is do you agree with the line that they are treading on here?
Yes.
More content, more bugs?
Yes.
Elaborate.
Oh. You're gonna make me actually talk about it. Got
Absolutely. That's
all
our
right,
job.
So, look, this is coming from someone who worked, behind the scenes, like for production for like Riot, for League of Legends for many years. Like, I've talked with their like patch teams back in the past, their playtest teams, the ones they had in-house as well, with a lot of the playtesters there. And I will tell you that especially if you're a new company, like this is going back to like the OG League of Legends days, back in 2010. Like, I've been playing, that's how long I played League of Legends for, by the way. I started playing in 2010. So I know what it means for a game to start out with not that many players. League of Legends, people don't realize, when it first started, did not have that many players. I remember going onto the forums and talking with a lot of the people who now would go on to be the owners, Tom Merrill and them on the forums before, saying like different things that should get patched, should get fixed. But the big thing is they are a game that is trying to like make it so that it's as appealable to as many different people as possible. They'll really get as many people to go, I like that aspect and I want to play because of that thing. Like, if you don't have that much content, you're not going to have as many people. You're not casting that wide of a net. Yes, you're going to have bugs. Guess what? That's how online games work. That's like, I mean, hell, that's just how video games work. You go back to like the dawn of time of video games. There is no video game that exists that has no bugs. Online or offline. That's just how it works. And it sucks. Sometimes they are awful. Like back in League of Legends, I remember that there was bugs where you could play Poppy and you could sit in a corner and you could kill everybody. That's it. It was a thing. You could do the same thing with Azir. You could put turrets everywhere that you wanted to. That was a thing. You could push Baron all the way into your base, automatically winning the game. It was a thing. These were things that took a while to get patched out as well. Like, it's what happens when you have a smaller team that also is trying to garner a larger fan base. They need to make sure they're constantly getting content out. Yes, the bugs are annoying. I'm not gonna sit here and be like that. TC is fine. They can have bugs. It's like they should work on them, especially game breaking ones, like the ones I was just talking about with League of Legends. It took them some time to fix some of those too. You need to fix those pretty fast. But if you're trying to make sure this game's successful, if you as a fan, as a player, want this game to continue, you need to have more content. You need to have more people playing the game. And I hate to say it, just you need to get over the bugs sometimes. You should report them. Don't just let them slide. Don't go, that's fine. It's a bug. Leave it in there. Tell them so they can fix it. But don't then gripe that they're focusing on new content, which might introduce new bugs, because that also happens with Riot, where they can fix a bug, they introduce a new champion, all of a sudden the game's broken again. It just how these games work, especially in a permanent online game. It's going to be that way. I don't think it's a great thing. Do I think that it's the best solution in the world? No. A perfect world, none of these issues ever happen. They release content all the time and there's never any bugs. Well, that's just not the world we work in. We work in this world where we got to sometimes deal with it. Make sure that you're telling the devs of the bugs, because when you don't tell them the bugs, it's just as bad as, the bugs being there, because now they don't know what to fix because they don't even know the bugs exist in the first place sometimes. But getting really mad at them and saying that they need to not do new content, they need to focus more on the bugs, just until the game's big enough. I'm sorry, guys. It can't be that way.
I mean,
Finn, by the way, _ Slay King. on to you, Zik. How are you going to follow that up?
I don't know. I'm lost. I don't know that reference, I guess. But I would basically agree with what you guys are saying. Like, essentially, like, let's be real. Less bugs does not attract more players, guys. Like, think about it. Like, just think about it for 2 seconds. Like, less bugs is not what we need to get the player base that we want. We need content compelling enough to keep players engaged. What less bugs does, maybe keep some existing players around longer, but still in pretty considerably small margins. And who says they're not fixing bug, bros? Let me read you the beginning of this last patch. We're also taking this time to track down and squish long-standing bugs and long-standing community requests. We may not get to everything, but we have been building a list from Discord, stack ranking it, and seeing what can be prioritized. If you have any top bugs or issues you think we should hit by 1.0, come by the Discord. It's like, who says they're not focused on the important bugs? And
like, I want to piggyback on that, because if I recall, in the not this patch but the patch previously, there was a whole call out for, or was it the patch before that, where they have a whole call out talking about people and players out there who were reporting these bugs and giving them shout outs, saying like, thank you for giving us this. Oh, here we go. It was the one before that. So it's like, it says, fix a bug that caused in-game missions in custom games with spectators to drop, blah, blah, blah. It says, thank you, Dylan, FPS, Jang, Lemur, and a dozen of other players who helped us track this issue down. Like, they want you to report these bugs. They do.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, if you have been around SUPERVIVE playtesting for any amount of time, the amount of big swings they've taken as far as changes to the game is like insane. Like, this game has changed over the last 5 years of development or whatever it's been. This game has changed so many times in so many drastic ways that it would probably blow your mind if you've just been playing in the last 6 months, because this is theorycraft. Like, what Joe Tung has set out to do here is build the next generation 10,000 hour PvP game. Like, that is such a huge goal. And that's why SUPERVIVE is so different. It's its own genre. Nothing exists like this. It's literal lightning in a bottle, because that goal is so massive. And he basically went and scouted the top talent for his development team in essentially every single role. And you have this dev team of ninjas. Like, if you look at the credentials across the people running the show over there, it's absolutely insane kind of what some of these guys and gals have done in their past. And so it's like, I think people grossly first of all, I think most players have no idea how game design works and have no idea really what they are talking about beyond the extent of playing the game themselves.
That's just most people in general.
Well, yeah. And so, but even beyond that, how kind of qualified this dev team is and how passionate they are and the amount of hours they're putting in, literal 12+ hour days, working weekends. You guys have no clue how much these guys are putting their hearts and souls into this project. And at a certain point, they're at capacity. You have a limited amount of human time and resources to work with. You have to prioritize the most important things. And right now, the most important thing is, how do we secure more player engagement? How do we first get more players to find out about the game? And then once they log in, how do we keep them here? And you know what's not going to keep them there? Having slightly less bugs. What we need to, yes, having a clean game with a low amount of bugs will help retain players. But what's really going to retain players is compelling content. And I think that's essentially why we've seen this kind of silence from TC, this heads down, because whatever is coming with 1.0 is going to be a massive change. No questions asked. If you're expecting the same SUPERVIVE now in 2 months, you are going to be disappointed because it's going to be completely different, but it's probably going to be way better because this is their shot. Everything is on the line. You guys, it's livelihood, it's salary. These people's families, they've invested the last 5 years of their lives into this project, day in, day out. You think they're not doing every single thing possible to make it happen? You're delusional. And so, I think, yes, it's important to, communicate your feelings and stuff, but just keep in mind, these are humans working their freaking hearts out, and they're doing an incredibly good job for the tiny kind of team they're working with for a project like this. And so I think just cut them some freaking slack, guys, and let them cook. Let them freaking cook, bro.
But I will say, there is one thing that I'll give the fans they should criticize Theorycraft on all the time. And that is that they haven't made more bullet trains and then go faster when they kill people. This needs to happen, and until it does, I will be upset. There we go.
Amen.
So I learned today, it's not just, so of course, June 1st. It's June 2nd, definitively for me. Like, it's not even okay. It's not even an argument. It is 100% June 2nd now. June 1st, we're recording this on, right?
For June 1st for us.
Beginning of Pride Month. Very important month where we celebrate everybody and we remind everybody, you deserve to live. You deserve to be yourself. Much love to all of you, no matter who you are. Thank you for supporting our podcast. SUPERVIVE, WU. But what I also learned, actually, is quite interesting, that this month is also Men's Mental Health Month. And I feel like my mental health has been rejuvenated hearing two of my favorite dads come into this podcast and just lay it all out on the line. Just delivering passionate speeches with their hearts. And actually, it ties... I'm going to tie in the side vibe that I had with Sean St. Laurent, of course, the wonderful Rated, where we kind of talked about this idea that sometimes everything won't be enough still. We talk about the bugs here. There'll be people like, oh, that's not what I meant. No, it's this and that and that and the TTK and all these sorts of different things. And I think in that obsessive need to take the game back to what it was or take the game in a certain direction, you end up kind of losing focus of what the end goal is here. Why are you complaining about a game and the direction it's taking when, A, we should surely be having trust in the people making it because they're the ones with every single piece of data, and that should ultimately guide what's working and what isn't working. But also on top of that, let's bring in a comment from the wonderful Stevenator, who just today delivered one of the best takes that I've seen in a hot second. I will read verbatim. I know other players would probably find Sean's words about veteran/competitive feedback very frustrating. For me, though, this is the mindset that I have had for the past 6 or so months. As valuable as my own feedback can be, I'm already bought in. I'm here to stay, and I have faith that the game will find its way over time. I want Theorycraft to prioritize the feedback of people who aren't buying in, and who are turning away after a few games. Making the game more appetizing and welcoming to those people is infinitely more important in the short term than appeasing veterans and competitive players. And I'm sorry, folks, but if you are going into that Discord, or if you're going into any of the sub-Discords or the Scrim Discords, and you are complaining 24 hours a day about why this is wrong and why this is wrong and why this is wrong, but you still log into SUPERVIVE in the evening, you are bought in. And unfortunately, the feedback, which is no doubt well-intentioned and plenty valuable, is going to be saved for a time where, fingers crossed, the game actually lives and thrives. The joke I've been making recently is it's no good talking about oath nerfs if there is no oath to play in the first place. So, let's get over that first hurdle first, and then let's focus on stuff like balance and bugs and such. More content. Really excited for 1.0
Can I piggyback off that a little bit? Because I also don't want to discourage people from voicing their opinions. I think that people have, like, you should feel that you have a valid opinion, and if you are feeling strongly about something, you should say it. But just don't get mad if it doesn't get acted upon right away. Or even if they take that and go, you know what, maybe that's not the most valuable feedback, because we already know that Hudson's really good at the game and everyone should be playing Hudson, and that bullet trains need to be faster with more bullet trains. But, you know, eventually it'll get listened to, right? That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, and it's like the timeline is so tight, guys. Like, I don't think people realize how tight the timeline is, where if you're working at TC right now, you have this crazy list of things you need to do. The whole 80% bottom of the list is not going to get done in time. Like literally, this is the quantity of things versus the amount of time left. Everything that's not absolutely critical to success is going to be moved down till Reliq says, till the game lives. And when it is living, that feedback is going to be super valuable. And I'm not saying it's not valuable now either. Like Magical says, it certainly is. But like he says, don't get mad if it's not implemented right away. And don't think it's not heard either. Like they certainly look at this stuff. And just because it's not instantly implemented the next patch does not mean it's not on their list. But it might be, you know, the 136th thing on the list right now when ranked by priority, right? So just let them cook.
You can tell we're tired because we're clapping back at a lot of the doomers. You know what? We'll allow it this once, because I think, why shouldn't we be positive about this game? Like, again, if you are playing this game regularly, surely you want it to do well. So why don't we also look for the things which are good? Case in point. Oh, what a segue.
Oh, there we go.
In the esteemed words of a Mr. Trump, China. We have pre-registrations. We have pre-registrations for China, which went live May 20th, right? May 20th. And I think I was definitely gassed up on the Hopium for a long, long time, where I'm like, oh, could we actually hit 1 million pre-registrations? Well, unfortunately, it has slowed down over the last few days. They have their first official playtest on June 6th. And look, I was made aware that apparently there is a dual rework teaser that has been released by the official account, whether it's NetEase or Top Pursuit, as it's called over in China. None of us have seen it, and I'm too tired to go and find it. So we'll talk about it on the next episode. But as it stands, and I'm looking at it right now. In fact, I'm just going to go for a refresh just because we're on a... There it is. 698,000 people have pre-registered to play this game in Chinese play testing. So we're not talking about 1.0 here.
Nope.
We're talking about, effectively, their beta.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, but you could look at that and say, oh, but Pokemon Unite got millions of people to sign up.
Dude.
SUPERVIVE is literally a nothing game to millions of people. To even be within sniffing distance of 1 million pre-registrations for a play test. There's 4 or 5 days to go yet, by the way. We're definitely hitting 750,000, that's for sure. Unbelievable achievement. Shout out to the folks at NetEase and, of course, Theorycraft, who've worked together to push this thing out, because, wow, that's like 700,000 times the current player base.
True. And you think about how passionate that market is for these kind of games. I truly believe that this, you know, if enough of them get a kind of taste of this and it kind of catches the public awareness over there, they're going to basically realize I can shine more mechanically in this format than I can in a League of Legends format, than I can in a Pokemon Unite format. There is more depth to the combat. There is more mechanical skill expression that I can put on display in this game than any game I've ever played like this. And I think that's the kind of lightning in a bottle that hopefully, you know, enough of them realize. And I think if that catches over there, you look at the way they play League of Legends, just this bloodbath, this massacre. Like it's literally just like, fighting for honor and glory. Like that, watching that play out in SUPERVIVE is going to be just like the most absolute cinema.
So I used to cast the LPL back in 2020 and 21, and
That's so
LPL
cool,
is one of my favorite regions. Like, it's still to this day. I'm pretty much detached from a lot of League of Legends stuff nowadays, just for various reasons. SUPERVIVE being one of them, but a bunch of different reasons I don't want to get into. But LPL is like the one I still will occasionally tune into because they are so much fun to watch. Because they love to show off the micro. We were talking about the macro, earlier when it came to Abyssal Cup, but like League of Legends, it has these ways that you can express yourself in the micro as well as the macro. But the Chinese players, the LPL players, they like the micro. They want to show off these skills. SUPERVIVE is built around that kind of player. It is built to show off and to have these quick reactions, to have these pop-off moments. Like, I want to make a little ad for SUPERVIVE that I can put on YouTube Shorts and TikTok to just say reasons why to play SUPERVIVE. And one of the big ones is that when you pop off, you feel like you were the best player in the whole world. It does not matter if you watch it back and it's literally you just got lucky half the time. You feel so good in that moment that is going to absolutely catch in the Chinese market.
Moving, you don't get a lot of time to play games. I've been able to find bits and pieces where I can boot up SUPERVIVE. And recently I was one of those players who just has comms off all the time. It's a habit that I've carried over from other games where it's just like, why would you even? And yes, you meet the odd occasional strange case, let's say. But majority of these games, I've had a great time getting to know these people. A lot of bronze and silver players, people who've only been playing for a couple of weeks. And it's so cool hearing about how they're really enjoying the game in its current state and that they just stumbled across it and they're really happy that they did. And sometimes we get to play together and we get to win. And I've had a couple of wins in the last week. And that feeling is just as joyous and as wonderful as my first ever win back in the late stages of... no, it wasn't even 2023. No. Yeah, it must have been mid-2024. When I got my first win in one of the last playtests before Steam Next Fest. And it is just... This game is really, really special to a lot of people. And it's why people do get upset about it and frustrated about it. Because I think there are so many people that naturally want to see it do well.
Can I have a humble brag really quick?
You can, yes.
My humble brag is when I load into games and people recognize me almost all the time. And I'm like, oh, it feels so good. It's like people know me and my casting. Oh, God, I'm going to disappoint them now when we play.
Brother, I'm right there with you. I might be diamond in name, but I am very unpolished in nature. So you don't know what you're going to get with me. But listen, I truly, truly believe that this is an incredibly positive thing. You only need 10% of those 700,000 players to convert into actual long-term players to again have, and I can't emphasize this enough, 70%, sorry, to have a 70,000%, wait, no, that's not right either.
70,000.
Like, it's like, no, it is a 70% increase on the current player base.
Yeah.
And as Sean was saying on that side VIVE, I was actually quite shocked by how candid he was on the numbers that they are aiming for. He said 50,000 CCU and we're looking pretty healthy. Well, I'm sorry, but again, 70,000 from one region alone, if that conversion is able to take place, and it should if the game retains as well as it can, we're not even including the rest of Ye World, which will have its own marketing campaigns, that will have its own pushes.
It will catch if you make bullet trains faster when they kill people. I'm just giving you free advice.
Exactly. It's free advice. Take it, Theorycraft.
It's just so stupid.
I'm lost for words sometimes with this one, honestly, Zikorik. But yeah,
You're the one who keeps inviting me back.
You're the one who's the co-host.
Why would I invite myself back?
You could have... Yes, exactly. I recently,
the plot thickens.
I will say, I recently got introduced to Levent, who's a Chinese player, and actually, you know, it's one of these things where it is such a great example of how passionate the Chinese player base is. They have their own server. You know, they have, well, say they have their own server. They have the Asia-based server, which they can play on right now. And yet, I've encountered Levent on the European server. The dude is just hopping servers and having a great time playing SUPERVIVE. And he's really good, by the way. I felt really accomplished to kill him once. So, like, I'm so excited about this region. I'm really excited to see, hopefully, a lot of people playing the game, whether it's on Bilibili or whatever, you know, sites they end up doing. And yeah, bit of optimism there to end what I believe will be the shortest.
If they want any casting too, just let me know.
Honestly,
I would love to cast some.
Look, let me cook, dude. I can't say anything just yet because I want to make sure it's all in place.
I'm just saying.
Want to make sure. But yeah, I believe that is the shortest high vibe. But you know what? I think we're just about tapped out here. We've got two very tired gents. We've got one tired gent who is not allowed to go to sleep until he's moved into his new place. And so I've got now about an hour of editing ahead of me to make sure that this goes up so that you guys can watch it on Wednesday when it's supposed to be. But as we wrap up, folks, any final thoughts just in general about what you've seen, about what you've heard, how you're feeling, not including bullet trains?
Oh.
You first, Magical. Are you gonna have to really think without bullet trains in the thing?
Who am I without bullet trains?
What is
See, this is why the bullet trains got the restraining order. The obsession.
The obsession goes too far. Love it. Okay, I'll start.
Imagine if we introduce a new storm shift to replace bullet trains called bullet buses.
There's no tracks. They just come. It's like bombing run. They just come.
Well, I do with my
Yeah, it's just a bus.
Just a bus.
I don't know, man. I don't know. You tell me.
Okay. Let me reel it in here real quick. So I just want to say, basically, to what we've alluded to, you know, if you are playing this game right now, if you're passionate about it, like, I think the best thing you can do for this game is just be positive about it. Share it with your friends, share it with the people you know, share your excitement. Make if you have any inclination to like make some content, stream it a little bit, make a video about why you like it. Like, these are the things that's going to help SUPERVIVE grow. Essentially, if you're in this kind of core group at the beginning, this is our time to kind of help, and we're going to start seeing little marketing pushes here and there. Like, just the other week, I saw for the very first time, on my RPG channel, Riker, who's a huge kind of force in the ARPG scene, has a SUPERVIVE sponsorship at the beginning of his video. He's talking about how excited he is for 1.0. You got, 100,000 views within the first couple hours on that video of people that have never heard of SUPERVIVE. So that's the kind of stuff that's going to start playing out over the next couple months. You got this really exciting stuff happening with other markets like China, like we were talking about. And, if you are passionate about this game, if you want to see it succeed, just rally behind it, show your support, show your love, share the game, and keep giving your feedback. But just, keep in mind all the stuff we're talking about. They are heads down cooking. They know very much what they're doing. It's a very, very experienced team of devs. And they have, they're basically taking the final big swing here with 1.0. We're not sure what it is, but there is going to be an armory. There is going to be potentially other really big changes to the game that are going to be hitting. And instead of being like hesitant or sad or like worried about that, how about you just flip it around a little bit, the perspective, and think about how cool these changes might be. Like, if it's, if this dev team is so cracked, what they're going to come out with here is essentially the final form of what SUPERVIVE looks like to retain players. And you better bet that, Joe Tung and company has a very, very kind of good plan they're looking to execute on here. And so, my kind of like final shout out here would be just love SUPERVIVE. Just SUPERVIVE. Send the positivity. If you're thinking about it, think about how it's going to pop off. All that's real, right? Don't think about how it's going to crash. Think about how it's going to pop off. All of us thinking that, all that energy into the universe, it's going to go, baby. The lightning in the bottle's just going to get shattered, and we're going to blow up. So let's go.
So make sure you're subscribing to Zik SUPERVIVE Make sure you're subbing to simply just
follow
Reliq.
Zikorik on Twitter.
Yeah, follow Zikorik on Twitter.
Yeah.
You make sure you go onto Twitch as well and just Reliq _ that you're following to make sure that you're watching any more
follow
Battle Hub events.
Zikorik and Mad Magical on Twitch as well.
Don't follow that Mad Magical guy. That guy's weird.
No, absolutely do.
Like,
I hear he
Magical
talks
has a
about bullet
pop-off
trains a
YouTube
lot.
channel.
Nah, I would never. I don't know about that. I wouldn't talk about bullet trains at this opportunity. I definitely ignored that whole thing. I was not just sitting there the whole time thinking about things.
If you like snippets of Hype SUPERVIVE, Magical's channel, the shorts he puts out, you want to subscribe. Like that spiciest casting moments captured in like 30-second clips, they're beautiful.
Folks, that was a loopy podcast. Hopefully you got something out of it. Goodness knows if we did. Maybe we'll wake up and we'll wake up and we'll regret everything, or maybe we'll wake up and we'll realize.
Right? Just put it out there.
just raw. So it's like,
baby.
Oh, it's like the lamb. It's raw.
It's raw.
Where's the sword? Listen. Even if we do wake up tomorrow and we regret what we did here, at least we also know that we wake up tomorrow and we can play SUPERVIVE. Well, I can't. I won't have internet tomorrow, but you will. So go out there, play some SUPERVIVE. GG's, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.